Good morning, everyone, and welcome to everyone. With this being our planning committee meeting today on the 3rd of September. It's good to see everyone today, and I'd like to give a warm welcome to anyone listening or viewing on the web. Before we start, there's just a few housekeeping points. If everyone could remain muted throughout the meeting and have your video on, and then when you want to speak, just raise your hand, and then I'll call you in the order that you've raised your hand. And if you need to leave the meeting at any point, please let me know so we understand that there is no connectivity issues. This brings us on to agenda item number 1, which is register of attendance, which Joanne will give a roll call for.
Okay, I'll just do a roll call. If you could just confirm whether you are present, please. Councillor Terry Aldridge.
Present.
Councillor Billy Brooks.
Present.
Councillor Richard Cunnington.
Present.
Councillor Sid Dennis.
Present.
Councillor Dick Edgington.
Present.
Councillor Stephen Eyre.
Present.
Councillor Alex Hall.
Present.
Councillor David Hall.
Present.
Councillor Neil Jones.
Present.
Councillor Thomas Kemp.
Present.
Councillor Helen Matthews.
Present.
Councillor Daniel McNally.
Present.
Councillor Jim Swanson.
Present.
Thank you, Chairman.
Joanne. And I forgot to do this last time, but if the officers would just like to introduce themselves and your role, I'll just go through the names. And Angud, your microphone is not.
Beg your pardon. Angud Democratic Services hosting the meeting today.
Thank you. Joanne Patterson.
Joanne Patterson, Democratic Services Officer. I'm taking the minutes at today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Edwards.
Morning, Councillor. Thank you. I'm Paul Edwards. I'm the Assistant Director for Planning at East Lindsey. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine Walton.
Good morning. My name's Catherine Walton. I'm from Democratic Services, and I'll be assisting with the hosting of the meeting this morning.
Thank you. Michelle Walker.
Yes, Michelle Walker. I'm the one of the planning officers at East Lindsey, and I'm here in connection with the planning application for Manby. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, Angela Simmons.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman. Angela Simmons, Legal Advisor for today's meeting.
Thank you. So that brings on to item number 2, which is disclosure of interest. Does anyone have any? Councillor Swanson, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to register that I'm a member of Lindsey Marsh Drainage Board, which is involved in this application at some point.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I think that there's a few members that are part of the drainage board. So if you just want to do a, committee declaration or whatever on that one. And anyone else?
Yes.
Councillor Aldridge.
Yeah. I'm also a member of the Lindsey Marsh Drainage Board.
Yeah.
So am I, Chairman.
So am I, Chairman.
Yeah, so am I. Anyone else? Councillor Dennis.
Yeah, I am as well. Yeah, come on, get on with it.
Right, minutes of the meeting. Agenda item number 3, minutes of the previous meeting. I'll propose that we accept them. Councillor Edgerton, would you like to second them?
I'll second those, Chairman.
Yeah. Anyone who objects to them, please raise your hands, or we'll take them as they are. No, so They're approved. Item number 4 is update from Planning Policy Committee. Councillor Matthews, have you got anything more to update on any relevant stuff?
Morning, Chair. Just to say that the Coastal Local Development Order has now gone out for public consultation. That consultation will be open to the 30th of September. It's a measure put in place to try and aid economic recovery during this pandemic period, and would be in place for 2 years. So if you can, could you feed back into that, please? Thank you. That's the update.
Thank you. Is that, will that be on the website and on social media at all so people can fill out the form?
It's already up there now, yes.
Okay, thank you. So that brings us on to item number 5, which is Causeway Bridge Farm, 48 Church Lane, Manby. Before we go over to Michelle, there is there has been some supplementary. I presume everyone's read it last night and stuff when it come through. But if you just want to give yourselves a minute or two just to refresh your memory on the supplementary. Yeah, so I think that's enough time for everyone. Michelle, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, just really to, just before I do the presentation, just to say on the update, in addition to the comments from Councillor Knowles, the Parish Council and the additional neighbours and their photos, there is just that little bit on the unilateral undertaking, just to, so everybody who's perhaps listening knows. The applicant has completed that undertaking now. It has been looked at by Legal Services Lincolnshire. And so if members wish to approve the application today, we are asking that the Assistant Director be given delegated powers to issue the decision once that's been formally signed. So it's just at the point where it needs signing the agreement. So just to stress that point. Right, I'll have a go at share screening now. Can everybody see the presentation before I start? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so, because I think last time I started and you couldn't all see it. So, okay, here we go. So this application is for an extension to an existing poultry farm at Manby, Causeway Bridge Farm. And this is the aerial shot of it. So it consists of a bungalow and 10 existing poultry units, which have a total of 147,500 poultry in them already. And this is Church Lane, Manby in this direction, that's Eastfield Farm, which is one of the nearest non-involved properties. And there's the Green Lane that goes along here, that goes to Salt Fleetby, and then Willow Row Bank, which is a track that goes off to Feddlethorpe. There's the B1200, Manby that direction, Salt Fleetby that way. This strange wiggling shape is the little Mardyke drain, and it's this area here which is the application site itself. So at the moment it's a pond and just sort of grassland really, as we'll see in the slides as we come on to them. So again, so blue edge around the rest of the farm, and it's this area here, and it's for an additional 3 poultry units with 4 feed silos, and the increase in poultry would be an extra 130,000 poultry, and they're broilers, so they're being sort of raised for food as opposed to eggs, so it's a broiler production. So a bit closer up, so there'll be 3 sheds varying in size, going the right angles to the existing units. So you come into the farm here, there's a concrete apron along here, and that'll be extended. All the units would be just a shade over 20 metres wide. The shorter one would be about 58 metres long, just short of 88.5 metres long, and just under 98 metres long. And this thicker line here represents the drainage board easement of about 9 metres. And then this is the area of tree planting that they need to do to mitigate against the impacts of any airborne ammonia and nitrogen deposition. So just a view of what they look typical, concrete base with timber and steel roofs, little ridge vent fan. But the height of them, excluding the little ridge vent, would be 5.78 metres tall. So that's the side elevation of one of the units. You see they have ventilation spaces along them. So just a view. So they're connected by little control rooms with the feed bins behind. Just a section to show. Okay, so the photographs. This is Church Lane here. You can just see the bungalow, which is occupied by somebody who works at the poultry farm. There's the existing units. And this is the area here where the new units would go. And you can just about make out B1200 there. So Manby's behind me, Saltfleet is the other side of those units. So this is the entrance into the existing farm, obviously security with the bungalow and the units. The application site is just down the bottom end. This is taken from actually on the application site itself. So this is the sort of the 10th unit. So I'm just stood in the area where the new units would go. Just a few views of that. This is taken from the B1200, Manby's behind me, just to really show you how they look in the landscape. I'm not a huge distance away from them really, but as you can see, they kind of blend into the landscape. The new units would go in a different direction, but we feel that they would blend in as well. And you can just those good eyesight can just make out the gate and wind farm behind. So this is taken from in Saltfleet B on the bends. This is the track I referred to earlier, just it's where it comes out and you can just see the units from there. So again, this is where the new ones would be. This is taken actually on the B1200. In the report, it talks about the applicant was asked if they would provide a new access road onto the B1200, and this is roughly where that access, if it had have been an option, would have come out onto the B1200. It's about 400 or 500 metres away. So what I thought would be helpful for members to show them is just a few slides of Church Lane, so you can see the relationship between the properties and the lane itself. So here we are on Carlton Road. The listed church is just in there. You can see the footway on one side, housing at varying distances, sorry, properties, a mixture of house and bungalows, distances to the road. This is, I've shown this because there's quite a few bends on the road. This is one of the accesses where residents have referred to drivers making mistakes and turning up the wrong road. That's one of those places where they go. This is the actual access to Causeway Bridge Farm. So you can see it's on a bend. This house is probably one of the closest to the road. So this is the access down here to the farm. And as you can see, it changes from 30 miles an hour to there's a little 60 sign just there, national speed limit. And this is just a photograph, typical elevation along there. And then this is just where it changes from sort of full tarmac to more of a hard surface. This is Eastfield Farm. And just down there, you can make out Causeway Bridge Farm itself. And I think, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. So it's over to committee. Do you have any speakers? Councillor Jones.
Am I unmuted?
You
Can
are
you
now.
hear me? I've got to declare an interest because I do like chicken. But what I would like to say is basically that this is adding 3 houses to an existing 10. I do appreciate that it is nearly doubling the production, but I have these new chicken sheds, not 200 yards from my house. I have another load, well, virtually surrounded. And these new units don't seem to have any smell or noise, and I never even know they're there. They've already got 10 there, and they're putting 3, which you can hardly see, that seem to be blending into the landscape. I do appreciate there would be some extra vehicles, but when you look at the objections, I mean, there's 5 or 6 of them that don't really relate. You know, speeding lorries. Well, that you can't really relate that to this application. Danger to roads and cyclists. Well, that already exists. So I really do not see that we have any grounds for objecting when there are numerous, if we've read them, haven't we, conditions that are being placed on this application, which and an agreement that's going to be signed. I think the applicants have done everything they can to provide the site correctly, and therefore I would propose that we accept the application and approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Cunnington.
Yeah, good morning, Chair, and thank you. Just on reading the supplementary again this morning, just refresh my memory. The objections from the Lincolnshire Fire Rescue and the highways, I can't remember fully. Have they been overcome, please? Thank you.
Yeah, do you want me to answer that, Chairman?
Yeah.
Yeah, the fire officer was talking about the weight of, from memory, the weight of the hard standing to accommodate their fire trucks and fire hydrants. They always raise fire hydrants as an issue. They're dealt with under other legislation that's not normally dealt with under planning. Highways, they didn't really have an objection. They just want a couple of passing places and some road widening, and there was a condition on the agenda to secure that if members wanted to approve the application.
Thank you, Michelle. Did you want to come back, Councillor Cunnington?
Yeah, so really then that does overcome the objections with what Michelle's saying. You put the passing places in place, so again, there's nothing really to stop us supporting it.
Thank you. Councillor Matthews.
Oh, right, I'm live, I think. Yeah, the only thing that was concerning me was the disturbance with the HGV movements, but I'm satisfied that over a 5-day period, there might be some disruption within 45 days. So I think that's acceptable. I think we put some really good conditions in to sort of help undertake some of the issues that might be caused by any other issues around water, ammonia, and various other things. So I'm minded to second this approval for this development.
Thank you. Councillor Aldridge.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I'm afraid I disagree, and I would suggest that we refuse this application. There are many bits and pieces within the presentation and the agenda. 7.22, who's responsible for the maintenance of the SUDs, for a start off. 7.23, the noticeable extra movements that take place. There's some mentions about clearing and stuff. How many movements will this involve? I live in a village and I'm at the same distance as those people in the residents. And I have to tell you that when the tracks at the tractors go past my house during the night with grain, and when we get big 44-ton vehicles, it shakes my house. It actually shakes my house. And we're on about increased movements. And let's remember, I know we've got to take every application on its own merits. Remember the one that we looked at Catesby, when there was one house on the corner, which I think was the old post office, and we refused it. Some of these things, 739, there are assumptions there, but no actual proof. 742, once again, it's based on similar locations, but it's theory, it's theory. I've got lots of other bits and pieces as well. The number of you've got to think about these residents. And I don't know whether you know that area. I know that area and I know that road. That road is unsuitable for heavy vehicles. And if you look at it closely, you will notice that it's been patched time and time again, and it's already breaking up. So how you can justify taking extra vehicles along there, I really don't know. As I say, it talks about at 752 about the noise. What about the shaking to these properties? Because I can tell you, 44-ton vehicle on those roads passing those properties, I can be pretty certain, although I haven't got any evidence, no one's mentioned it, those properties will shake. And I think it's totally unacceptable to the residents. And I notice actually about the evidence about the environment. And I notice that it says it's adverse on the European Shadow Appropriate Assessment reports. So that's against another nail in the coffin for this application. And I noticed that it only employs one other full-time member of staff. And you've got to weigh up this against the inconvenience that is being caused to the residents, not only now, but in the future, with the excessive movements of huge vehicles. And as already mentioned, I think Terry Knowles says that the junction past the church, the vehicles have to go the wrong way round because those 44-ton vehicles cannot maneuver safely. And just to put two passing places in there is totally unsuitable. If you were to look at a Google map, you will see the length of this vehicle, this road, and you will notice that these vehicles, if they're going to pass, they've either got to reverse back into the passing places, or you're going to damage the sides of the roads, which are already damaged in places. So I'm very much against this application. I know it's already been proposed and seconded, but I know that area. I've got a friend who lives in that area.
Councillor Aldridge, are you proposing a refusal?
I'm proposing refusal.
Right, thank you. On what grounds?
An inconvenience to the residents.
Would it be the same grounds on 5.1?
Yeah, yeah.
As what was on the previous committee.
And the fire brigade.
No, because I think that's dealt with.
It's dealt with.
Yeah.
Well, as I say, I would go back to the past objections and also the new objections from all the residents in the area and the council. We must take on board the views of local residents. We did at Ketchby on that estate there, and we had a site visit and we refused it, and we said that another road should be put in, which was agreed. And this is the same situation. The objections to the residents must be taken into account. If you live in the countryside and you see these huge vehicles coming through and huge tractors as well, as I say, it not only shakes my house, I'm pretty certain it shakes the residents nearby. And there are more movements. You look at the extra movements that are going to take place. I'm sorry, it's totally unacceptable for the residents of that road in Manby. And so I strongly urge other members of the committee to vote against it because it's totally unacceptable.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Aldridge. Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'd like to throw my support behind this. I don't see we've got any reason to object at all. Totally disagree with Councillor Aldridge. I think the vehicles today are so much quieter. I run 20 trucks and they're up to 44 tons, and you know they're very quiet today, the modern truck. We've got to get on. I can't see any objections to. I could understand the highways seems to be the problem with the residents, and yet the highways have put the thumbs up to it more or less. You know, everything's been done there that make it work, so I can see no objection to delay this application any longer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I think a lot of the objections are the lorries going through at night time. I think. Councillor Alex Hall.
Yes, I would just like to say that I support the what Councillor Dennis and Councillor Matthews have already said, really. And I know that there's a lot of concerns about the traffic, additional traffic down Church Lane, but I think that it has been set out quite clearly in the conclusions on 8.3, page 40. It does really set that out quite clearly, and I think Councillor Aldridge really has well, I mean, what a load of drivel. I mean, it's shameful, the comments that he made, I think, and really disgusting, actually.
That's enough. Anything else to add, Councillor Hall, or not?
I hope the monitoring officer is watching this and listening to it, because that is abuse of my position.
Well, I think you didn't even set out any proper evidence.
Councillor Hall, is that it?
So yeah, that's it really.
Thank you.
If a councillor can't set out any proper evidence, then they shouldn't comment, should they? Thank you.
Councillor David Hall.
Okay, actually, Councillor Swanson was actually before me. He had his hand up way before I put mine up.
Well, you're on the list.
He wasn't on the participants list. He put his hands up physically.
Oh, well, just David Hall. Just
okay. I actually agree with Councillor Aldridge. The damage on that road, the existing damage on that road from the heavy vehicles is actually quite severe. Is the actual farm going to be doing paying towards the repair of the road before they start bringing more HGVs down there? I didn't actually see that anywhere in the evidence.
No, as far as I know, no. Michelle?
It's not anything that's been raised by the highways or as an issue, so no.
But it is something that has been brought forward by the residents.
Yeah, but then, you know, it's not to developers
Okay,
pay for roads, is it?
True. Okay. Obviously, Councillor Swanson's behind me, so I'm fine with that one.
Was you, Councillor Hall?
Sorry, what?
Was you seconding Councillor Aldridge then, or?
Well, it's in or out, so yeah, I'll second Councillor Aldridge.
Thank you. Councillor Swanson.
Yeah. Have you unmuted me? Have you unmuted me?
We can hear you, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been listening to some of the comments, but I feel that we've got to read what these residents say, and above, more so, we want to read the comments of the parish council. Now, the parish council's against this, and and there are 26 residents against this. The ward councillor is against this, and we have to listen to the people, because the government says we should have a say on these planning things, and then I find that that councillors on the committee that are criticising other members for their opinion and referring to what they see as drivel is quite offensive, really. So I'm looking at this objectively. The fact is that we've got lots of complaints already. There's a 33% increase or thereabouts in the quantity of birds, 277,000 broilers. Now, I have lots of experience from Stickford of the problems caused to residents, and more so to houses on Poppy Pool Lane, for example, a house with cracks due to that. Then there's been a transport plan which forbids the trucks going through the village of Stickford, and there's been speed limits put on to stop these thunderous trucks coming through. Now we got a situation where residents are complaining that their sleep is being disturbed, and then to say that we should completely override what the residents say, I find is not right. It's certainly not fair, and I would have to support the ward member, the residents, the parish council. I realised that the highways have kind of approved this, and I've realised that a direct route to Bambi Middlegate or whatever it's called is impractical. But the fact of the matter, there's every truck which can come down at any time of day through the village of Manby. It has to be unacceptable to some degree. So what I'm saying is there is a serious effect on the amenity of the residents of Manby, and for that reason I am not going to vote for this. I'm sorry, folks. I realise that there's lots of support around in the committee, but I can't support it. I think we have a responsibility to look after the residents of our community. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Swanson. Before we go on to, Councillor Matthews is next, but before we go to Councillor Matthews, is there anything you want to come in to, Paul?
Yes, thank you, Chairman, if I may. This is a very thorough, robust and comprehensive report. It's not theory, it is backed up with assessments and evidence and assessments by the professionals in their fields of that evidence. And of course, committee have got, we believe, all the information in front of you. There are many, many issues which have to be balanced. Just so there's no misunderstanding, there was comment about the habitat regulations assessment and the conclusion that there would be an adverse effect. The paragraph 7.76 says there would be an adverse effect without mitigation, but the application and the negotiations that Ms Walker has been involved in have met and found mitigation. It's right that we take residents' comments into account. In some circumstances, and Michelle will advise committee on this, in some circumstances it's possible to do surveys of a highway before a permission is granted, and then there's an obligation on the applicant or the developer to look at the condition of the road pre and post development and then come up with a schedule of repairs. But it has to be reasonable, it has to be related to the impacts of the development. And just as much we can't control normally through planning purposes the impacts given from the existing situation, we can only deal with the proposed situation. The unilateral undertaking that's being offered, which committee can quite legitimately take into account, is seeking to try and mitigate some of the effects of HGV movements. So it is very, very finely balanced, Chairman, thank you. But I don't think it's theory in terms of the advice and the recommendations that have been given. There's been a lot of assessment there and a lot of mitigation negotiations to come up with a package that's on balance, your officers believe is now acceptable. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. Bring on to Councillor Helen Matthews.
Just that I'm hearing a lot about the highways, which has concerned me, and I'm listening to the residents. But at the end of the day, the highways haven't objected. They have suggested and requested passing places and widening, and that is in the conditions. So I'm satisfied by that. But this goes back to the argument I have quite frequently. You know, the countryside is a place of work. It's not some abstract thing that's pretty and what have you. It is first and foremost a place of work. And the bigger picture of things, you know, if we really care about our environment, we should produce and be more sustainable with our own food. And that's another reason that I'm supporting this in development as well.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. Councillor, could all those who have put their hand up lower them at all, please? Councillor Simmons, sorry, Angela, did you want to comment?
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to bring some clarity regards highways, because often we have this discussion about highways objections. There is a subtle difference between highways amenity sort of impacts on residents, and that tends to be different for what the statutory body sort of role. It's a judgment as to whether an increase in traffic movements can impact amenity of residents. So there's a subtle difference between them. So I'd normally advise strongly against, obviously, refusing on highways grounds for technical reasons, because obviously, unless we've got evidence ourselves to contradict the statutory body, then that would be difficult. But there is a subtle difference in sort of amenity effects of highways, and that is a judgment for the committee. And I would say that's sort of a separate judgment to that from the statutory body.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis, I think.
You think correct. Yeah, I would just like to say, if I may, that I understand where Councillor Swanson and Councillor Aldridge are coming from. The only thing I will say, we do have a duty to residents, and we have a duty to the precept that we take and the money we take and the money that we spend on planning. And I believe that there is no way that if this went to appeal, I believe there's no way that this can be refused in appeal. And therefore, the reason I'm voting for this is because if I do understand and appreciate how the residents feel, but I don't think going down the appeal route that we would have any justification for that. And I feel that that would incur a significant cost to the ratepayer. I wondered if we could have some clarity on that, because if we do fail this, it will go to appeal, and I believe under appeal, I think Paul might be able to help us this, Paul Edwards, and I think we'd be really barking up the wrong tree with this, and I do think we do have a we do have a duty of care to look after our residents' money, public money. Thank you, Chairman.
Do you want to come in, Angela, on that one?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, as we all know, with appeals, it's the test of unreasonableness as to whether you get a cost award against you, and inspectors do award costs against councils. But for me, it's the justification point. If you made a reason for refusal without justification, then that would be deemed unreasonable. So it's the case of the council would have to have a reason for that refusal. You can't at this stage sort of say there's absolutely no chance on appeal, because we can't actually say what an inspector will say. But my advice to the committee was, as long as you have a reason to back up the refusal which you're putting forward, and there's no statutory bodies which are contrary to that reason, then there's no reason to say there's unreasonableness there on part of the council. But I say it's a very difficult call to make at this stage, as it's an independent view by the inspector.
Thank you. Did you want to come back, Councillor Dennis, on that?
No, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. Nobody knows what the inspector is going to say. It's just, I can understand the emotion, and I can understand what we've had from the objectors of this, and I'm talking about the objectors on the committee. We've had no, I don't believe, sufficient grounds, apart from people don't like it. And I just wondered where we stood with that, because I can't see anyway we could have a robust condition to object to this. This is my problem I've got.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. I mean, I think on 5.1, it has been to committee before, and it was refused on amenity grounds, not highways or anything else. Actually, amenity grounds for traffic noise and stuff, more so than any other thing. Councillor Cunnington.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Chair, I've never come across this before, and our legal officer has actually just pointed us in a direction that's new to myself. She said about the legal impact for the highways due to technical specifications, which we can't go against because highways aren't objecting. I see in the report that the complainants are complaining about the lorries already driving over their front lawns due to the width of the vehicles. And the legal officer said about the highways amenities. If we were to look at this, which it's been pointed out already, it's in 5.1 of the report. If we were to look at objecting against the amenities for highways, is there something there that we could be supported on if we were to object? Could the legal officer give us a way of objecting in that relationship? Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's going to be the case that the increase in numbers of traffic movements would be detrimental in amenity values to the residents. But on the counter argument of that, you'd have to also take into account the mitigation points that have been made by the applicant, and also the conditions. So it's a case of weighing. It's a very finely balanced planning judgment with something like this, because you haven't got a statutory body say that here's the facts and figures which say that it's a refusal or an approval. It is very much a planning judgment, whether you think as a planning committee that the increase in production, the increase in lorry movements, compared to the mitigation measures which have been put in place, whether it is still unacceptable levels of impact to the amenity of neighbours and residents. It is very difficult, and it's very much a planning judgment, but there is a case there that obviously the previous refusal is based on those grounds. And it's whether you believe in this application, whether the mitigation put forward does not alter that, or whether it's acceptable now in planning terms. But it's not, unfortunately, as you know, with planning, it's not a black and white decision. We always sort of float in the grey area. So we are looking at a planning imbalance here, and whether you think the increase in movements compared to the mitigation that's been proposed still leads to an unacceptable impact on the residents near to the poultry unit.
Well, I certainly wouldn't be happy as a resident with Arctic lorries driving over my personal property, and I can't see in the report that that's actually been overcome in that one area. So that is an effect on the amenities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cullington. just on the supplementary section where it says that unilateral undertaking has been taken. There are no HGV movements between the hours of 8 till 7 in the morning, except in connection with the movement of livestock. Now, at the moment, the only thing that's moving at nights is the livestock. So, in essence, the livestock movements will increase. But the undertaking was for the movement of feedstock, which is normally done in the daytime, but it's restricted to only day. At the minute, they can do it at night time if they wanted to, but it's saying that they won't do it in future. So if it carried on as it is, actually it would be an increase in traffic at night time. Is that correct, Michelle?
Yes, so at the minute we've got no control what happens at night and what happens during the day. And at the moment, the only things that are moved at night are the pullets when they catch them and take them off to the abattoir. So that's the only things that kind of are moved at night for definite. With the current application, that would increase those movements overnight. What they're saying is, whilst they don't do it at the moment at this particular farm, they don't have any feed deliveries overnight, they don't muck out overnight, they don't do any of those other activities at night. And what this undertaking is saying is actually going forward for the whole farm, after the hour of 8 o'clock at night and before 7 o'clock, the only things we'll do overnight is the moving of poultry. So it is given an assurance they won't do something that they currently aren't doing, but that's not to say that they wouldn't do it in the future if it was more convenient for everybody, or the feed lorries, you know, it was easier for them to do in the evenings, whatever. What they're saying is they won't, if they sign this, they won't do that. The only things they will move is the poultry.
Thank you. Councillor, I think I've got loads of hands up at the minute. Can anyone who spoke just...
Yeah, I've got my hand up, Chairman.
Would you want to speak?
Yes, please, very much.
Carry on.
It seems a straightforward application to me, this does, Mr. Chairman. These 3 huts would finish any further development in the site. The applicants already have permission to use lorries down this road, so they're not going to run over more grass, I don't think, if that's considered to be a problem. But this application is a bit like a sewage farm. Nobody wants it on the doorstep, but everybody contributes to it. And there's a huge demand for white meat, which these people are producing efficiently and effectively. And I think just because the residents are put out by another lorry or two, it's not significant enough to consider refusing this application. The huts were here when the residents arrived, and prior to that, Manby was the College of Air Warfare, so I don't know what they'd think to a load of jets coming in every day. It seems a perfectly reasonable and rational application, and I think we should support it.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. I'm not seeing any other speakers unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah, you're mistaken, Chairman, because I've had my hand up for some time. I mean, we are going against an inspector's decision. I would love this to go to appeal, because I think the inspectors would uphold it on the same grounds as they upheld the previous one, which was to do with the residents, the impact on the residents. And the impact on the residents is going to be far worse. So I would love it to go to appeal, because as I say, I am pretty certain that the inspectors would refuse it yet again, as they did on several other occasions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Angela?
Yeah, just to clarify, Chairman, that the application previously, which the council refused, did go to appeal, but it was withdrawn by the appellants prior to any decision being made. So we haven't had a formal inspector's decision on this application yet.
Not seeing anyone else wishing to speak, we shall put it to the vote. And we'll take the refusal first, which is proposed by Councillor Aldridge and seconded by Councillor David Hall. If Joanne would like to take the vote.
Okay, so for the refusal vote, if you could speak clearly and confirm whether you are for, against or abstaining. Terry Aldridge.
For the refusal.
Councillor Billy Brooks.
For.
Councillor Richard Cunnington.
For.
Councillor Sid Dennis.
Against.
Councillor Dick Edgington.
Against.
Councillor Stephen Eyre.
Against.
Councillor Alex Hall.
Against.
Councillor David Hall.
For.
Councillor Neil Jones.
Against.
Councillor Thomas Kemp.
Against.
Councillor Helen Matthews.
Against.
Councillor Daniel McNally.
Abstain.
Councillor Jim Swanson. Councillor Jim Swanson.
You might need unmuting, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Right.
Councillor Jim Swanson.
I'm for refusal, but I'd like to point out that I put my hand up and I wasn't called the second time. So I object to not being called.
Well, my apologies, I honestly didn't see that, sorry.
Okay.
Just give me a few moments, Chairman, we'll just confirm the voting. So that's 5 for refusal, 7 against and 1 abstention, Chairman.
Thank you, Joanne. So that hasn't been passed. So we'll go on to the second one, which is Councillor Jones's proposed for approval. Councillor Matthews has seconded for approval. And whenever you're ready, Joanne.
For the approval vote, then if you can confirm if you are for, against or abstaining, please. Councillor Terry Aldridge.
Against.
Councillor Billy Brooks.
Against.
Councillor Richard Cunnington.
Against.
Councillor Sid Dennis.
For.
Councillor Dick Edgington.
For.
Councillor Stephen Eyre.
For.
Councillor Alex Hall.
For.
Councillor David Hall.
Against.
Councillor Neil Jones.
For.
Councillor Thomas Kemp.
For.
Councillor Helen Matthews.
For.
Councillor Daniel McNally.
Abstain.
Was that abstain, Councillor McNally?
Yeah, abstain, yeah.
Councillor Jim Swanson.
Against.
That's 7 for approval, 5 against and 1 abstention, Chairman. So that's carried.
Thank you, Joanna. So that's been approved in line with the papers. So that brings us on to item number 6, which is appeals decided. Did you want to pick up any, Paul?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. There's 2 appeal decisions reported on your papers. First of all, on page 47 is the Winterby Gardens Horncastle appeal decision. Committee will recall that this was refused against officer recommendation. You'll see the appeal has been dismissed, i.e. planning permission has not been granted. Michelle was the case officer on this, so she can help me out if there's anything else that maybe needs bringing to your attention. But I think it's important just to look at the reasons for refusal and the reasons why the inspector upheld the committee's decision. If you look at paragraph 9, for example, he talks about the character. The scheme, he says, doesn't have to mirror the surrounding character, but it's got to be responsive to it and reflect it. It talks about it, the scheme hasn't attempted to blend into the area. So it's very much a very subjective judgment all the time on these things, but you'll see overall the inspector agreed with the committee that it didn't reflect character. I think the other point just to point out is, you'll remember there were lots of relationships where we pointed out plot by plot that they were on the margin or we felt on balance acceptable. And you'll see the inspector's paragraphs 22 through to 27, the inspector goes through each of those relationships in turn and finds all of them to be suitable. So although that was our concern and committee's concern, overall I think we felt they weren't that bad to be reasons for refusal, and the inspector agreed on that. Of course, committee will be aware that there is a new application for this scheme in which is being dealt with. I dare say it will likely come to committee because of this history, because it was a committee decision previously. Then the second appeal decision is at Friskney. That went against the council in that the appeal was allowed and planning permission was granted. And that's very much to do with holiday occupancy. And again, it's worth a read because my reading of the inspector's conclusion is, didn't think there was much difference between something being occupied 12 months a year for holiday purposes or occupied 12 months a year for your only place of residence purposes, which is potentially a bit of a strange decision, but it's there nevertheless. But I think, again, committee, it's worth reading it, given, of course, the number of Section 73 applications we have to do with holiday occupation at the moment, albeit different. But again, another appeal decision that's good background for committee to have a look at if they haven't already. That was all to say, Chairman. Thank you very much. Just asking committee to note those appeal decisions.
Thank you, Paul. I have got 2 hands up here. I don't know if Councillor Aldridge and Councillor Swanson, was you wanted to ask a question?
Who's going first, me or Councillor Swanson?
Well, you're first, Councillor Aldridge.
Right, I'll go first. Well, I look forward to a written apology from Councillor Alex Hall. If I don't get...
Stop him, Chairman.
Yeah, it was a question for Paul Edwards, but there wasn't any. So that brings on to item 7, which is delegated decisions, which is just, you know, have a read. Item 8 is the date of the next meeting, which is the 1st of October 2020. Hope you have a good month, and I'll see you all next month.
Are you going to just let Jim come in? I think Jim wanted to say something, didn't he, Danny?
Hello.
Have we finished? Yeah, Jim?
Yeah. That's twice I've put my hand up and twice I've been ignored. But we'll let it pass because I think the second hand was from the previous time when you ignored my second call. Now, I do appreciate that there have been situations where members have criticised other members.
Can I just stop? Have we finished recording?
Chairman, can I just confirm you wish the live stream to stop now, and I'll just press the button and stop it now for you. Thank you. Thank you.